I was low on gas and my GPS had died an hour ago. I didn't know where I was, just an endless stretch of desert in every direction. The sun was setting fast, and the last thing I wanted was to be stranded out here in the dark. When I saw the flickering neon sign of a gas station up ahead, I thought I'd found salvation. As I pulled in, I noticed how old everything looked. The sign above read "Last Stop Gas" in faded red letters, barely visible under the rust. The pumps were ancient, straight out of another time. Something about the place felt wrong, but I convinced myself it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. I got out and tried to pump gas, but the machine didn't respond. I walked toward the station, hoping to find someone inside. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and a small bell above jingled weakly. Inside, the place was a wreck. Dusty shelves, dim lighting, and an unsettling smell of something rotten. I called out, "Hello? Anybody here?" But all I got was silence, broken only by the low hum of an old fridge in the corner. As I turned to leave, my eyes caught a wall behind the counter. It was covered in old, yellowing photographs, pictures of people, mostly travelers. There was something deeply unsettling about them. Their eyes were all scratched out. I shuddered and backed away, but as I did, I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from behind me. I spun around, expecting to see someone standing there, but no one was there. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I was no longer alone. I rushed to the door, but when I tried to pull it open, it wouldn't budge. It was locked. I didn't understand. How could it be locked from the inside? My heart pounded as I banged on the glass, desperate to get out. But then I heard the footsteps again, this time from outside. I looked through the window and my breath caught in my throat. A figure stood next to my car, tall with a wide-brimmed hat, its body draped in a shadow I couldn't fully make out. It was just standing there, staring at my car. My instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The figure slowly turned its head toward me, and my heart nearly stopped. Its face was a hollow, twisted mask of decay. Empty eye sockets, a mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. It didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. I panicked. Grabbing a wrench from the counter, I smashed the window and climbed through the broken glass. Blood from small cuts ran down my arms, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. I sprinted to the car, fumbling with my keys, but the figure had disappeared. I jumped in, locked the doors, and tried to start the engine. At first, it didn't turn over. My heart raced as I twisted the key, praying for the engine to catch. Finally, the car roared to life and I floored the gas, speeding away into the night. As I drove, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see that thing chasing me. But there was nothing, just the empty road behind me. Relief washed over me, but then I noticed something strange. The gas gauge. It was full. I hadn't pumped a single drop, and yet the tank was full. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went back, determined to figure out what had happened. But the gas station was gone. There was no sign of it. No station, no pumps, no neon sign. Just an endless stretch of road in the middle of nowhere. To this day, I don't know what I encountered at that gas station. But sometimes when I'm driving alone at night, I see a flickering light in the distance. And I know it's still out there, waiting. It was supposed to be a fun detour, just a quick stop on our road trip. My friends and I were taking the back roads, looking for small towns to explore. We weren't expecting much, just a few old buildings, maybe a diner. But when we saw the sign for Willow's Rest, we figured it was worth a stop. The first thing we noticed was how empty it was, not just quiet, completely devoid of life. No people, no cars, not even the sound of birds. The streets were clean, almost too clean, and the buildings looked frozen in time. There wasn't a single broken window or overgrown yard. We parked in front of what looked like the town square, and I immediately felt uneasy. The silence was unnatural, oppressive, but my friends were excited, snapping photos and making jokes about ghost towns. I tried to shake the feeling that something was watching us. We started exploring, walking down the main street, peering into shop windows. Everything was untouched, as if the townspeople had just vanished. But the weirdest part was how the buildings seemed to shift. We'd pass a bakery, then turn around, and it would be something else, a barber shop, a hardware store. It didn't make sense. My friends laughed it off, but I was getting more and more nervous. I told them we should go, but they wanted to explore a little longer. As we walked deeper into the town, things got stranger. The sky seemed darker, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. The air felt heavier, like we were being smothered by the town itself. Then we heard it. Footsteps echoing through the empty streets. At first, we thought it was just one of us, but then we realized they were coming from behind us. We spun around, but no one was there. Just the same empty road we had come from. The footsteps continued, growing louder, closer. We started walking faster, then running, trying to find our car. But every road we turned down led us back to the same square. It was like we were trapped in a maze that kept shifting, changing around us. That's when I saw them. Figures standing in the windows of the buildings. At first, I thought they were mannequins, but then one of them moved. Their faces were blank, featureless, but I could feel their eyes on us, watching. Panic set in. We ran, screaming for help, but the town remained silent except for those footsteps, now echoing all around us. We reached the edge of town where we had parked the car, except the car was gone. We stood there, panting, terrified, and confused. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something, a small flicker of light. I turned, and there, standing at the edge of the road, was a figure holding a lantern. It beckoned us forward. I didn't care what it was or where it was leading us. We followed, desperate to escape. As we crossed the town's boundary, everything shifted. The sky cleared, the air lightened, and our car was suddenly parked right in front of us. We didn't ask questions. We jumped in and sped away, not daring to look back. Later, we checked the map, but Willow's Rest wasn't on it. No town by that name existed. To this day, I still dream about that place, about the figures watching us from the windows, waiting for us to come back. I've always loved camping, especially alone. There's something peaceful about being deep in the woods, far from the noise of civilization. At least, that's how I used to feel, until that night. I had set up camp in a secluded spot, miles from the nearest town. It was perfect, just me, the trees, and the stars. I'd been there a few times before and never had any issues. But this time, something felt different. The forest was too quiet. As the sun set, I sat by the fire, watching the flames dance in the darkness. The silence pressed in around me, but I brushed it off. It wasn't until around midnight that I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves just outside my camp. At first, I thought it was an animal, a deer maybe, but the steps were too heavy, too purposeful. I sat up, straining to hear. The footsteps stopped just outside my tent. I held my breath, listening. Then a voice, low, whispering but unmistakable. "Help me." My blood ran cold. The voice was right outside my tent, but it didn't sound natural. It was too calm, too emotionless. I grabbed my flashlight and slowly unzipped the tent, just enough to peek outside. Nothing. Just darkness and the faint glow of the fire. I stepped out cautiously, scanning the area with my light. The woods were still, silent. But then I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the trees, its back to me. It was tall, hunched, and its shoulders moved as if it were breathing heavily. I called out, asking if they needed help. The figure didn't move. I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, the figure turned. Its face was pale, stretched, unnatural. The eyes were hollow, black pits, and its mouth hung open in a silent scream. I froze, too terrified to move. The figure didn't blink, didn't make a sound. It just started walking toward me, slow and steady. I backed up, stumbling over roots, trying to get back to my tent. But when I turned around, the tent was gone. Vanished, like it had never been there. Panic set in. I ran, my flashlight flickering, the figure's footsteps echoing behind me. I don't know how long I ran, but eventually I saw the faint glow of my campfire in the distance. When I reached it, the tent was back, exactly where I had left it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the fire, clutching the flashlight, listening for any sound. But there was nothing, just the endless, suffocating silence of the woods. The next morning, I packed up and left. I haven't been back since. But sometimes, late at night, I hear those footsteps again, and I know it's still out there, waiting.